Today, my guest is former WWE developmental talent, Mr. Cable Jones. Doctor, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I cannot complain. Winter is starting to slowly go away. It can get cold over in Indiana here. It can be sunny, snow, hot every other day. I'm trying to stay not sick here, but I think we're almost past it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it was 9 degrees out here a couple days ago. Now it's up in the 40s, mid 30s, high 30s, low 40s. So it's much better than nine.
Yes, sir. So, when did professional wrestling first come into your life?
You know what? I think for a lot of us, it started at a young age. For me, it was like 5 years old. I remember sitting in my dad's room and he was flipping through TV channels, and all of a sudden he flipped past wrestling. And then I asked him to go back, and ever since then I was hooked.
What was it back then that you felt like that caught your attention?
I, you know what? As a kid, I think it changes as we get older
Hmm.
because as a kid, it's the spectacle, it's the bright lights, it's the showmanship, the colors. The first thing I saw, it was definitely Hulk Hogan, and I think it was Sergeant Slaughter, but I was so young, it might have been the Iron Sheik. It was, I'm not 100% sure which match it was. All I know is it was a Saturday,
Hmm.
and we were hanging out in my parents' room watching TV.
So, did you continue to watch wrestling from that age on?
Oh yeah, yeah. And whenever it was on, whatever I could find, I was
Hmm.
always watching.
At what age did you decide that this was something that you were going to actually try to pursue?
Literally from the moment I first saw it. My first tryout for WWE, well, WWF at the time, was Tough Enough, the first one. And a lot of people don't know this, but when that call came, I was recovering from a broken leg.
Nice.
Um, yeah, so I went to the first tryout, for the first Tough Enough opportunity where Maven won,
Hmm.
and I competed on a broken leg, trying to make it to the top 10, I think.
So, how was that tough enough experience for you?
I mean, it was different. It was my first experience. I didn't expect much. You always hope for the best. And
Hmm.
as a kid, 19 years old, you're thinking this was my one and only shot.
Hmm.
But as we get older, we realize, all right, keep plugging away, keep going after it. I mean, man, it took me 10 years and five tryouts to finally get the
Hmm.
opportunity and shake hands saying, welcome to the WWE.
Hmm. What was the move after tough enough for you?
Jeez, let's see. Tough Enough was,
Did
well,
they
I
give you any
started training.
feedback? Sorry.
Um, No, not in that
Hmm.
situation because it was so fast paced.
Hmm.
They kind of knew who they wanted, and they went, I mean, it was a huge field of people.
Hmm.
So, they had to narrow it down to, I think it was 10, 10 guys, maybe 10 girls. I can't remember, but, the field was so generalized and, they have their picks and,
Hmm.
you're all fighting for the same spot. So you have to understand, and there's always going to be somebody that's more prepared than you are. Even as much as you could possibly prepare, there's always somebody else that prepared even more.
Hmm. So after tough enough, you decided to pursue training elsewhere.
Yeah, what was it? 2000, I started training with HWA. It was called the Hardcore Wrestling Alliance over in Long Island. I was going to Stony Brook at the time, and I met somebody on campus who heard about this camp, and we went down, checked it out. Mikey Whipwreck was involved in it, and I took my opportunity to start there and learn and develop a character. And then I had opportunities to work in a couple different indies. Geez, this is way back. I can't believe it was 25 years ago. Um, so that's how it started. And then I started getting into some of the local circuits around Long Island and New York and New Jersey, Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
Um, And then after that first tough enough experience, when the video came out and I saw myself on TV, I was like, all right, if I really want to do this, I really need to start taking it seriously. I mean,
Mhm.
granted, I showed up great, but there's some times where not showing up may be better,
Mhm.
especially if your health or your physicality just isn't there at that time. I mean, I was on heavy duty, painkillers, and hiding the fact that I was trying out with a broken leg that
Mhm.
was still healing. No excuses. I'm not trying to make excuses or anything like that, but once I saw the image of how I looked at that moment, it made me realize, all right, if I'm going to really do this, I need to take it seriously. I need to get my body straight. I need to get my health straight, and I need to take the time to heal.
Mhm.
Because when you're not on the road and you're not on TV every day, that's the opportunity to invest time in your body, in your health, and make sure that you can continue going.
Mhm. Uh, During all of this, were you still trying out for WWE periodically, or doing the camps and tryouts?
Yeah, geez, all right, so tough enough. What was that? Was that 2021? Oh, I'm sorry, was that 2001?
I think that's when it aired. Yeah, 2001 is when the first season aired.
All right, so that was the tryout was somewhere in 2020, 2000, 2001. Then I tried out for, geez, let's see. All right, so it was tough enough. I sent in a tape, I believe, for Tough Enough too. Um, I got a call for the $1 Million Tough Enough. I was there for that one. That was 2004. Uh, I went to OVW in 2004. I had a tryout for TNA in 2008 against John Moxley. And then shortly after that, I got signed to WWE 2009. I believe it was March 3rd, 2009. I got signed to, what I was looking at, I still have the photocopy of my check that I got from being an extra. And I made a copy and I framed it on my wall.
Very cool. So during all these tough enough tryouts, did they? You said they called you for the $1 million one.
Yeah, yeah. I was there for the $1 Million one. And then I think because of being called for that,
Mhm.
I wound up with an opportunity to go to TNA. Um, and then I had that match with John Moxley. It
Mhm.
was November 11th, 2008. Um, I was actually backstage at TNA in 2007. I got invited down, and I was helping the guys backstage as a chiropractor. Um, showing them different stretches, showing them how to protect themselves. I
Mhm.
mean, I even taped up one guy's torn hamstring, and he was able to go out and perform at the level that he expected to perform at. Um, I've been chasing two dreams at the same time my entire life.
Mhm.
I always wanted to be a doctor. From the time I was 5 years old, I always wanted to wrestle. And I
Mhm.
always said I was going to go to the WWE one day or WWF, whatever it was back then. And at 12, I decided I wanted to be a doctor. I just wasn't sure which field of medicine I wanted to go into. When I was in high school, um, I had some family stuff going on. My mom got really sick. She wound up with cancer. And that actually shaped me into the provider I am today. And crazy enough, the two professions have been intertwined my entire life.
Mhm.
Um, when my when I went to OVW in 2004, I was there with Danny Davis and Dr. Tom, and trying to think of who else was there. But they had us put together a resume. And then they sat us down for interviews for like promo class. And I'll never forget it. Dr. Tom was reading my resume, and he said, in here it says you want to go on to get your doctorate. I was like, yeah, eventually, I just don't know where yet. And he was like, what are you thinking? And at that time, I was thinking either physical therapy or chiropractor, but I
Mhm.
just couldn't decide which way to go. And Dr. Tom said to me, ask some of the guys who would they prefer to see. And I did that. And I said, hey guys, God forbid you ever got hurt. Who would you rather see, a chiropractor or a physical therapist? And every last one of them said chiropractor. And they said that because the reason being is you could go see a chiropractor and then you could show up for work later on and continue on
Mhm.
doing what you do. But the minute you hear those two initials, PT, that means that you could be out anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months, and you may not even have a spot when you get back.
Mhm.
So, because of those conversations, that was March of 2004. I was enrolled in chiropractic school September of 2004. I graduated 2008, and then I started practicing. And then had the opportunity to take over an office in 2009. And I'll never forget this. The craziest thing was I had two voicemails on my phone. The first one was from the Cairo that was looking to have me take over his office, asking me what font I wanted my name on the door in. And then the next message after him was Ty Bailey saying, hey, Don, it's Ty Bailey. We want you to move to Florida. And I was like, how am I supposed to go tell this guy that I just got an opportunity to go wrestle when he wants me to take over this practice? But it was something I had to do.
Mhm. So what led to that deciding at that point in time for them to reach out and want you to come to Florida?
I went, where was I? Okay, so I had my tryout in 2009, and it was crazy, man. It was like the planets aligned.
Mhm.
I don't even know how else to explain it. I mean, the trip from Orient Point to Connecticut, the first show, so I think Raw was in Boston, and then SmackDown was filmed in Connecticut.
Mhm.
So I had to take the ferry from Orient Point on Long Island up to Connecticut, or I'm sorry, Orient Point to Rhode Island, and then drive to Boston.
Mhm.
Now, once you get across to Rhode Island, it should only take about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to get to Boston.
Mhm.
7 hours in the worst snowstorm that I've ever seen in my life. We drove 7 hours. It took us 7 hours after we got across with the ferry. And when I got to the hotel room, it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. And I stared out the window at the snow. And I just remember saying, this trip can't be for nothing.
Mhm.
And that was like my fifth tryout in 10 years. And we showed up at the arena the next day. Um, And funny enough, Kevin Sullivan. So Kevin Sullivan, he he met me on the Indies. I was doing a show for, um, it was a company in Jersey, NWA, I believe. I think it was NWA, and they it was really cool, man. So, and this is basically, everybody who wrestles, like you always hear people say, always bring your gear,
Mhm.
right? And this was that moment. I wasn't even on the show. I was going to support somebody else. And I told the promoter, just met him. I said, hey, I know you guys have your show. I know you have all your people. Um, just a heads up, I've wrestled for X amount of years at this point. I have my gear in the car. God forbid somebody gets hurt or doesn't show up. Just let you know I'm in the audience. Right?
Mhm.
I'm sitting in the audience. not expecting anything. Next thing you know, one of the guys working security comes and grabs me, and he was like, "Hey, the promoters want to talk to you." I was like, "All right." So I go talk to the promoters, and they said, "Hey, you said you have your gear, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "All right, we need you to do something for us tonight." I said, "Okay, just let me know. Let me grab my stuff, and I'll be right back." I go grab my stuff. I come back in, and I said, "What do you need me to do?" And they were like, "Our main event guy didn't show up. We need you to go one on one with Chris Masters tonight." I was like, "All right." So, so the match with Chris Masters on one night turned into me working the rest of that weekend because after the match, Chris went into the back and told the promoters, "I'm the only one he wants to work with the rest of the weekend." So they wound up bringing me back for the next two shows. And the following night, that was the night that I met Kevin Sullivan and then also Nelson. Big Daddy V
Hmm.
was there, Viscera, and Balls Mahoney, and it was really cool, man. Like it was like everything was aligning for me in that moment. I walked in on them talking in the locker room about me, and they said, "You're the best unfound talent that we've seen in a long time on the Indies, and it's just a matter of time before you get an opportunity." And then Kevin Sullivan pulled me aside, and he was just like, I love your presence. I love the fact that when Viscera was walking towards you, you didn't back down or cower down because you guys are about the same size. I mean, obviously he's bigger than me,
Hmm.
but we were the same height, and it gave for a pretty cool big guy versus big guy match.
Hmm.
And for my size at the time, I think I was 6'5", 300 pounds. And this, he said that I took his sidewalk slam better than anybody ever had. Like, because I jumped and threw myself at him so fast that he spun twice, and we landed. Uh, and when we landed, he was just like, "That was awesome." I was just like, "Yeah, get off my chest." But yeah, it was. So I think I kind of sidetracked a little bit. So we showed up in Boston. We get to the arena. The reason I told you that story was because Kevin Sullivan, he reached out to me uh, that night. Actually, no, I'm sorry. That the night the night before we got there,
Hmm.
he reached out to me before we drove through the snow. All right, I'm sorry. I know I'm all over the place,
You're
but
fine.
um, this was an important part of the story. So Kevin Sullivan called me and he was just like, "Hey Don, I heard you have a tryout." And he was the one that predicted I was going to have a tryout in the next 2 months. Like he was just like, "In the next 2 months, you're going to have an opportunity." I was like, "Okay, all right, thanks." He called me. I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" He was just like, "Hey, I heard you have a tryout." I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "When do you leave?" I said, "Tomorrow." He was like, "Do me a favor." I said, "What?" He was like, "Put some fur on your boots." And I was like, "What?" He was like, "I'm telling you, trust me, put some fur on your boots." Right? So I did it. I show up to Raw. He didn't really explain to me why. He was like, "Just put some fur on your boots." So I did it. I show up to Raw. I'm walking around in my gear. They didn't have an opportunity to see me that day because of the snow. Everything
Hmm.
was kind of off schedule. It took a while longer to get there. I'm walking around in the back. All of a sudden, Johnny Ace comes out of his office and he's screaming down the hallway, "Hey kid, come here." I was like, "Oh, what did I do? I'm just standing here." And so he calls me into his office and we go into the office and I was like, "Hey, how are you?" And he was like, "Good, how are you?" And he was just like, "So tell me the story about the fur on the boots." And I was just like, so I thought really quick and I was like, "Well, I figured I have all this fur on my face. I might as well put some fur on my gear." And he looks me dead in the face and says, "I fucking hate it. Change it for tomorrow." And I was just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize." He was just like, "Whatever. Just make some changes for tomorrow. We don't have time to see you today, but we're going to take a look at you tomorrow." I said, "Oh, okay." So after that show ended, we went back to the hotel. I called Kevin and I was like, "Kevin, why did you have me put fur on my boots? It got me yelled at." And then the phone got quiet, and he was just like, "Did it get you in Johnny's office?" And I was just like, "Oh my God, yeah, it did. Did it get you an opportunity to talk to him?" And I was just like, Yeah. And he was like, "Johnny notoriously hates fur boots. He hates when people put fur on their gear. I don't know the exact reason why. I didn't even bother asking, but he was just like, you're on his radar now, so don't mess it up." I was like, oh, okay." So that night, I tried taking the fur off the boots, but I couldn't get the glue off. And then we went to a 24-hour CVS, and the only thing they had was nail polish remover. So I'm sitting in the bathroom trying to get the glue off, and I just couldn't get it off. So I had to show up the next day with my boots with glue all over them. And then they finally had me do a match with Jesse. Remember Festus and Jesse?
Hmm.
So they had me do a match with Jesse. And then when the match ended, um, Johnny started talking to me. It was him and Ricky Steamboat, and they were asking me questions about my background and sports and all that. And then all of a sudden, Johnny turns to me. He was like, "Hey, so what happened to the fur?" And I was like, "Well, you told me you didn't like it, so I took it off last night. I'm sorry I couldn't get the glue off, but the only thing that was open was a 24-hour CVS. I just couldn't get the glue off. I needed something more industrial strength to get this off." He turns to Steamboat and he was like, "You see that? I told him I hated his the fur on his boots, and he changed it immediately." And then all of a sudden, I was like, "Oh, okay, I see what's happening now." They wanted to see if I would listen. They wanted
Hmm.
to see if I was coachable. And next thing you know, we're going in the back, and Johnny's saying, "We want to offer you an opportunity." And I was just completely lost at that point. I was just like, "All right, an opportunity to do what?" And he was like, "We want to offer you a job." I said, "Okay, job doing what?" And he looked at me so strange. And I was just like, "What do you want me to do?" And he was just like, "Son, do you want to be a WWE superstar?" And I'm just like, "What?" Finally, I shake his hand, but I didn't shake his hand like, using my hand. Like I was like dipping with my knees, like my whole body. Like I couldn't even function at that point because it was just like everything that I worked for
Hmm.
came together in this one moment, and it was the most amazing experience of my life. And
Hmm.
it was really weird. It was really cool. So I'm thankful. I'm
Hmm.
thankful for that opportunity. I'm thankful that I got to experience things on a deeper level than just being a
Hmm.
fan.
Hmm.
Because not everybody makes it to the WWE. Not everybody makes it to TNA.
Very
Not
true.
everybody makes it to Ring of Honor. I had an opportunity like the entire time I was chasing after being a doctor. A lot of the shows, I mean, we didn't get paid for. Like I didn't
Hmm.
get paid majority of my career. All I ever worked out with the promoters was, look, you don't have to pay me. I just want to be able to set a camera up to be able to record my match, to have footage of matches, and be able to put together a highlight reel or a press package
Hmm.
to help advance my career. And that's what I did. I had some pretty cool ones that were posted on YouTube, and that basically got me the opportunity. And I honestly, I think the opportunity of getting to TNA and having that match with Moxley,
Hmm.
it put me on the radar. So the $1 Million Tough Enough put me on the radar. Then being on TNA put me on the radar. And then what was the other thing? Uh, Going to Puerto Rico and wrestling Savio Vega right after that. It was really cool. It was a cool experience. It was a cool opportunity. Um, and I had a really great time. Do I wish it went further?
Hmm.
Absolutely. I had a whole storyline uh, that I came up with on the fly that would have taken us straight from SummerSlam into WrestleMania. But it comes down to somebody wanting to push it.
Hmm.
Like this business is being ready, having the right look, somebody wanting to push you, and being in the right place at the right time. You know,
Hmm.
um, when I was down in FCW, there was a lot of guys that were there that were second generation, third generation, family legacies. And I cut this promo talking about how there's a lot of second and third generation wrestlers here. I'm first generation. I paved my own way. I blazed my own trail. I'm not here because of my dad doing a favor or a friend hooking me up with an opportunity or just walking in off the street because you didn't know what to do. I'm here because I want to be here, not because I was bred to be here.
Mm.
And the promo didn't go over too well, but I thought it was a good idea at the time. But, I don't know, whatever. It is what it is. Politics.
So, what was your first initial thoughts of FCW and developmental? Because this was not the performance center. This is a warehouse, a hot ass
Yeah,
warehouse.
I mean, look, you know what? I've trained in some of the worst hellholes you could possibly think of. I mean, everybody started in a garage or a warehouse
Hmm.
where you hit the ropes, and if you hit them too hard, you're gonna smack the wall. You
Hmm.
know, we've all started there. We've all been there. I I wish that I had the opportunity to go to NXT.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like FCW was that in between. Don't get me wrong, a lot of great talent came out of OVW, Deep South, FCW, but the ability to hide talent, uh, that's gone. Like
Hmm.
that doesn't happen anymore. There is 100% transparency at this point with the performance center and social media. So they know when people are coming up. They know where they are and who's, on the roster down there in developmental. So there's no hiding anybody anymore.
Hmm.
And I, I, I feel like in that environment, I might have made it further. Um, it was tough. It was tough because back then it was more like, Hmm. I mean, this is a strange comparison, but once I say it, you're gonna notice it. It was like headquarters in Connecticut was the warden,
Hmm.
FCW was the inmates and the prison guards.
Hmm.
So if you can't make it past the prison guards, you're never making it to see the warden.
It's true.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I I always felt I had a great gimmick, I had a great idea, but the problem was it was my idea.
Hmm.
Wasn't their idea. And back then, when I was 29, I'm 43 now. I was still, how do I describe this? I was still at that point in my life where I felt like I needed to prove something, prove myself, prove my worth. And instead of focusing on the agenda, focusing on the finish line, focusing on what my goal was once I walked through this door. It
Hmm.
wasn't about making friends. It wasn't about, being buddy buddy with people. It was about making money, making an impression, getting to TV, and staying focused. And along the way, I lost my focus, whether it was family stuff, personal things going on at home, relationship stuff. I lost my focus. It was April 1st. I had a freak accident in the ring during a show, blew out my right shoulder to the point where it was really debilitating.
Hmm.
But because of my background, I knew how to tape and support it and protect it, which allowed me to continue on. But it was so bad that eventually it needed to be fixed, and I was really grateful that Johnny helped me get to Birmingham to fix the shoulder and get back to my life. You
Hmm.
know, but it was still a tough pill to swallow when that release call came
Hmm. Was there any
because
particular? Go ahead.
No, no, it's just that, like we all expect to make it to that
Hmm.
top level. Like nobody gets into this not wanting to be champion. Everybody has that dream of holding the title at one point. And honestly, it was really hard to continue watching after I knew it was kind of done. Um, and seeing all the other guys. I mean, look, I'm happy for them. I'm grateful that they went on to do great things. I mean, I was in camp with the Usos, Roman Reigns, Titus O'Neil, Darren Young, uh, Brodus Clay, Fandango, EC3. The list goes on. Byron Saxton,
Hmm.
um, geez, Abraham Washington. I mean, I could just keep going on and on. Bray Wyatt, Bo Dallas. We were all in camp together. So it was really cool to see how they, proceeded forward and made it to that next level. I just wish I could have been one of them.
I can understand how that is a hard thing to do and see and watch because you're right. People don't get in not to make it all the way, and it just
Mm,
feels like at that time from previous interviews, it's like they had so much talent or people signed and stuff that you couldn't. It was almost flooded down there because
yeah.
they knew what they wanted to do next, which was NXT. Like you said,
Mm.
FCW was that middle ground there. So it just felt like. Did you ever feel like you got lost in the shuffle?
Yeah, in the beginning until the opportunity came when Jim Ross came down there to watch us put on matches.
Hmm.
And I was really grateful for this. I honestly, this was probably the best match that I had, one of the best matches I had when I was down in FCW. And it wasn't even for a TV or a taping or a live event, nothing. It was a practice match in FCW in front of Jim Ross, Dusty Rhodes, Steve Kern, Norman Smiley, Dr. Tom. And it was me and you remember Devin Allen? His real name is Ron Hicks.
Yes.
Okay, so Ron and I got paired up, which was a godsend for me because he and I got along down there. And I went to him and I was like, Ron, my shoulder is shot. Like I can't lift on the right side. But can you cover me? And he was like, dude, just tell me when to jump. And I thought that was pretty cool because he knew, and he was one of the guys when we were at Cena's camp, and he sat next to me when we were sitting on the bench. He leaned into me and he was like, "Could you imagine how good you would be if you weren't hurt right now?" And I was like, "Stop rubbing it in. I'm doing my best here. I'm taping it up. I'm leaning on my education to be able to get through this." And I had guys from TV saying, "Just get to TV. All you got to do is get to TV. Once people see you, they're gonna want to push you." And so the match that I had with Ron down in FCW, we were in the back, and I was like, "Hey, let's really try something here. Are you game? You feeling good?" He was like, "Why?" I was like, "You want to go prison rules for this match?" And he was just like, "All right." And then I said, "We say our sorries, we apologize in the back." And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, just like he was." And he put his hand on my shoulder and he was like, "Don, I'm sorry." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, save it for later because we're not gonna be happy with each other after this." So we get out there, and the reason I made that decision was because I was noticing how the matches prior to us were going. I wanted to turn it up like we were headlining WrestleMania.
Hmm.
I wanted it to be so over the top that nobody could look away and nobody could say anything negative about it. And, a lot of the guys prior to our match were having matches, but there was no feeling. It felt like a walkthrough. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
it felt like a practice match. And I knew that wasn't what they were there to see. So I grabbed Ron and we talked, and I was like, dude, let's just lay it in. Let's make some sound. Let's see if we can make him a fan again. And we did. I mean, the minute the ref rang the bell, we went to lock up, and I kicked him straight in his stomach, and then I punched him straight in his face, and I caught out of the corner of my eye, Jim Ross jumped back in his seat, and I mean, everything was solid. We took our time. I mean, just like everything was impactful. Everything, like when I slammed him, I tried to slam him through the mat. When I
Hmm.
hit him, I made it sound. Like I made impact. I wanted to really draw everybody into this. And there was
Hmm.
this one spot where he went to splash me in the corner. I moved out of the way. He was face first in the corner, and I just started forearming him in the kidneys. And the way he was selling it was like I just ruptured his kidney. Like he was crippled to the ground, and then he was like staggering to get back up, and then I hit him again. And then on the next one, I told him throw a backhand and then jump. So he threw a wild left backhand, and I grabbed him for a backbreaker, and I started screaming, jump, 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 jump. And I had him way over my head. He jumped so high up, I almost lost him. And then I guided him down to my leg, and he just stuck on my knee. And JR was just like, what did I just witness? And I rolled him off my leg, and I screamed at them, are you not entertained? And I forget how the match ended. I think I did a splash and rolled them up, and then they talked to us. Then, JR said that it was that was a really great match. Thank you for the effort that you guys put in. And then they moved on to the next people.
Hmm.
Crazy thing was, the next match they stopped it in the middle, and then Jim Ross was just like, "Hey, where's Cable Jones at?" And then I'm just like, and he went on to say that he really enjoyed my match. He even talked about it apparently in his podcast years ago, about the one guy we can make money with down here. He's a doctor back home, and I that was really cool. I thought for sure that was my opportunity to move on and
Hmm.
get looked at, and really be talked about, and considered. But the next week I was let go. So
Did did they give you a reason why they let you go, or was it just the standard creative has nothing for you?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was more along the lines of, they were figuring out another direction they wanted to go. It just
Hmm.
came time for releases, and I was one of the, I don't know, I think it was 10 of them. They let go of 10 people. But, you know, uh, after that, I had an opportunity to go practice as a chiropractor in the Philippines. I was an ambassador of chiropractic. I introduced it to the Philippines on a grander stage. In the United States, there's somewhere between 150 to 200,000 chiropractors worldwide, nationwide. Um, in the Philippines, when I was there, I believe the count was 18 or 21, one of the two. But nobody over there really understood what chiropractic was. They didn't understand how it worked. And I had an opportunity to show it on a grand stage. I mean, TV, newspaper, magazine, radio. I was even the backstage doctor for the Araneta Coliseum, the Inaras Arena. I treated the UFC, the WWE. They had other wrestling shows that came over there. They had the PXC, which was the Filipino Extreme Cage Fighting. It was a really cool opportunity. I met a lot of people on the way. And what was funny was, when the UFC came, people were taking pictures with me thinking I was one of the fighters. And they said, all right, everybody line up because we have to get you checked out by the doctor. And then I put my coat on, and everybody was like, what? Uh, yeah, it would have, it's something that it bothers me every day. I'm not gonna lie. Like I expected to be on the level of a Roman Reigns You know, I, the Usos, I really thought that it was going to shape out that way, especially the way it went, how long it took, the determination to get there, 10 years of trying. I thought for sure it
Hmm.
was going to manifest itself. You know, God, I would compare the way I would work in the ring to like an Obafemi. Um,
Hmm.
just a brawler, a big guy that comes out and knocks people around and uses bodies to, beat up other
Hmm.
bodies and leave a wake of destruction and then head out.
Have you had any conversations with WWE since your release?
No, no. Uh, once I left and other things came into life, I always thought about going back or trying again, and I honestly I did. I take that back. So 2009 I was signed. 2010 I was there, and then the end of 2010 I was released. I wound up going to the Philippines 2011 to 2012. And then when I came back, 2013, I put together a package that basically condensed the past 8 years of my life into 3 minutes. And I sent it off to WWE because I thought for sure my reason for coming back from the Philippines was to pick up where I left off.
Hmm.
Needed a break, needed to focus on other things for a bit, but now it's time to get back at it. During my time in the Philippines, I wound up leaning out. I went from 300 down to 260.
Hmm.
So I was very lean. I wouldn't have even looked like the same person coming back. It could have been a completely different character. And in that time frame, I learned how stop trying to give them the pieces of the puzzle. Let them find the pieces themselves.
Hmm.
Just be the guy that shows up and does what he needs to do, and the opportunity will come. The person that taught me that it was Kevin Nash and it was Scott Hall. Um, you know, and Scott mentioned it to me. I'll never forget. He told me when he first got there, he didn't care what character they gave him. Just put me on TV. I don't care
Hmm.
what you want me to do. And then that was when Scott came up with the say hello to the bad guy. Everybody wants to be a good guy, but Vince say hello to the bad guy. And then it started to run. So he found that way to make it their idea. He planted the seed
Hmm.
and then they ran with it. Versus me walking through the door and saying, "Oh, I'm a doctor in real life. Let me run with this doctor character because I merged it together over the years." So I tried to walk in there with my own idea, and because it wasn't their idea, they didn't want to push it. Follow me?
Hmm.
And I wish I could have understood that back then. I don't know, chalk it up to being driven, having a focus, and being a little immature still at that age. Because the mindset that I have now compared to what I had back then, it's like I couldn't understand it back then, but I understand it now. And, it is what it is. What are you going to do?
So how's life been after WWE? Sounds like you've been busy and doing a lot of pretty cool things.
Life has been great, man. I opened up my own practice. I have my own chiropractic practice, and it's a multidisciplinary office with multiple different providers offering different services. Physical therapy, massage. I'm sorry, not physical therapy. Chiropractic, massage, acupuncture, pain management, ortho, neuro, all under the same roof. And it makes it easier for people to, get treated and get in to see a provider if they need to.
Hmm.
One of the things that I worked on for the past decade and a half now was building a network of providers that I trust personally. I
Mhm.
mean, a lot of people don't realize this, but I've had a lot of surgeries, like 27 different surgeries in my lifetime. So it gives me an inside track on what the patient is potentially feeling, um, what we need to do to get them better, and how can I fast track this quality of care for them. I have providers who take, certain insurances. I have other providers that take other insurances. So I've become kind of like a clearinghouse
Mhm.
to be able to get patients to the providers that take their insurance over here, to the providers that take their insurance over here. In my office, there's no waiting time. If you need to see an ortho, the longest you're going to wait to see an ortho would be 4 weeks. And that's only if they were here on, say, a Thursday and you came in on a Friday. That's the
Mhm.
only time that you would be waiting to see them in my office for 4 weeks. But you don't even have to do that. I could just turn around and send you over to their office, and then you don't have to wait. But if you want to wait and you only want to travel to my office, then it'll be 4 weeks. But that rarely happens.
Mhm.
I've helped a lot of people over the years. I've helped stroke victims learn how to walk again. Um, I've gotten people better when other providers have said that there's just no way that, this is going to get better. I just have a different way of viewing things, different way of seeing things. I don't know. But everything that I've been through up to this point in my life has made me into the provider and the person I am today.
That's pretty cool. It's amazing to see that you became extremely successful doing what you wanted to do, and you get to help people daily. That's an amazing thing to be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I chased after two different professions at the same time. My parents always instilled in my head to reach for the stars, but
Mhm.
keep your feet firmly planted on the ground. You know, um, I just, look, there's worse things to fall back on than being a doctor, you know. Um, and I've had conversations with different people over the years. Like some of them, they told me to stay in school. Like I was in grad school and I was freaking out over the fact that I was seeing other guys that I was in camp with going up and having opportunities with WWE and TNA. Um, it was hard for me to be sitting in a windowless classroom
Mhm.
for hours on end when what I truly wanted to do then was wrestle. And I had some good guidance. Just get this done. Once it's done, you always have it. You'll never have to go back and try and get it later on in life. So that's what I did. I finished my boards and I had the opportunity to go to WWE like right after I finished my boards.
That's
So
amazing. If you had
yeah.
any advice to give to anybody getting into professional wrestling, what would it be?
Save your money, work on your body, have professional gear, um, and have a backup plan. You have to have a backup plan. You always have to have a backup plan. If you don't have a backup plan, um, you're putting all your eggs in one basket, and that could be a really scary thing. I hear people say it all the time that, it's all or nothing.
Mhm.
I've even heard, I mean, most recently I heard Arnold Schwarzenegger say that.
Mhm.
I understand that advice, but it doesn't work for everybody.
Sure.
It just doesn't. Like, because think about it, if you put all your eggs in one basket and that's it, it's all or nothing. Some people respond really well to that pressure. Other people don't, So for the few select that are able to make that work and take that chance on themselves and take that risk, that's great. Congratulations, you did it. John Cena, uh, endless others. I mean, but John went to college. Like there were some people that didn't even go to college. They just went straight out of high school and said, "This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life." But they don't understand rest of your life. This could be over in a split second.
Mhm.
People get injured all the time. and sometimes it's not even that something that crazy. I remember Ezekiel Jackson blowing out his quad just jumping off of the apron, hopping down. How about Triple H tearing his quad when he just misstepped? You
Mhm.
know, uh, I saw a guy blow his ACL, just misstepped in the ring.
Mhm.
Like it's crazy. Look at Laparca. Laparca suicide dive, caught his head and a whiplash effect on his neck from the guardrail. It killed him. You know, there's so many others, like it could be over in the blink of an eye. And honestly, from my background, when I took that bad bump in FCW and I felt my clavicle just pop up, I already knew once we got to the trainer's room, I already knew this was the beginning of the end. I knew it right then.
Mhm.
Like because I knew my body and I could feel how unstable it was. Now that it's fixed, it doesn't bother me at all. I haven't had any issues with it in years, decades. And I'm better now physically than I ever was when I was in the company. Um, I'm in better shape now than I was when I was training, which is crazy. I'm stronger, and I would totally, like in a heartbeat, come back if the opportunity
Mhm.
presented itself. With the knowledge that I have now, with the mindset I have now, I feel like I would do very well, much better than I did when I was younger, because there's a lot of personal growth that comes with maturity as well.
Mhm.
You understand what you can do, what you can't do, what's going to make you look good, what's not going to make you look good. That that level of nervous anxiety is gone of having to prove yourself. Like just go out there and enjoy the moment because that's what it is. It's a moment, you know. For a few select choice people, that moment stretches on for 15, 20 years. You look at Randy Orton, I'm sure he has thought over his career that when he got injured, this is it. I don't know
Mhm.
if I'm gonna make it back from this. And look at where he is now and how many years he's been there. Over 20, right?
Yeah.
Like he's a lifer. I remember when he gave that interview to Vince McMahon and he asked, "Why should I invest in you?" And he was like, "I'm not looking to go anywhere else. I'm looking to be a lifer." Like he said it on TV. I
Mhm.
never forgot that. And he's stood true to it. He's
Yep.
been there so long. He hasn't worked anywhere else, just WWE. And he stood true to what he said. And a lot of guys wouldn't say that.
Mhm.
Even me, I thought, you know, being reasonable, like reasonably speaking, I thought I was good for maybe 5 to 7 years at that level, but it didn't happen. So part of me still feels that I still got another 5 to 7
Mhm.
that in the tank that I could go do this and, crush it. It's just a matter of, you know, there's so many different faces. There's a whole new group of talent that came through, younger. It is what it is, man. What are you gonna do?
That's true. Where can people reach out to you at? Are you accepting new clients?
Oh yeah. All they got to do is look up Synergy Pro Wellness on Google. It'll take you right to my office, and there's a website, and you can find anything. If you Google Dr. Don Juan Moore Jr. on Google, all the old stuff pops up, videos and everything. But it was an experience, man.
Yeah.
You know, I I wish it went further.
Mhm.
I always welcome the opportunity to circle back and let's make this happen again.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I, but sometimes you have to accept reality.
Well, I for one appreciate what you've done for professional wrestling. I appreciate you coming on this podcast, and I just your time there mattered, and I don't ever want you to think that it didn't because you were there for a reason. and I truly appreciate what you gave to the sport of professional wrestling.
I appreciate you having me on. It's funny, I'm looking at the pictures behind you.
Hmm.
The top second one from the right,
Hmm.
the first one in where I'm laughing.
Yeah.
I remember that promo. That was promo class. It was Seth Rollins actually took that picture and sent it to me. Because he was just like, look at this face, right? So there was this, this. I really took. I had a lot of fun with promo class. A lot of fun with promo class, especially after I found um, there was a thrift store up the block and there was a costume store up the block. So every week I wound up coming in with something completely obnoxious, right? So when Caitlin was in FCW, I was like, all right, well, I'm doing this doctor thing. It would be good to have a nurse, right? So we wound up having her wear a nurse's outfit, but it was like a sexy nurse outfit,
Hmm.
and she was supposed to be like my Nurse Ratchet kind of gimmick. And so now after we did that promo, I think the next week she was gone because she went up to NXT for the third season,
Hmm.
right? The third season was when they did the women the Divas challenge, right?
Yep.
Okay. So then she was gone. So I was just like, what do I do? I wound up I wound up having Ron Hicks put on the nurse's outfit, and I got in the ring and I was cutting a promo talking about you know everybody knows that Caitlyn went on to bigger better things, so I have a new nurse helping me today. And Ron comes out in this nurse's outfit, and I was trying to explain pressure points in the body and weak points, that it doesn't matter how strong or big you are, it'll stop you. Like, so then there was this point in there where I was doing this stuff to him, and then he starts crying, and he was just like, I just want to go home and see my family. And and then it was like, so it started off as like a tutorial on like different pressure points in the body, like right up under the nose, in the hand, in the fingers, underneath the armpit, up in the neck. And towards the end of it, it went from being a tutorial to me just being this crazy doctor that just wanted to maim somebody. And then that was me laughing after I was like crippling him on the ground. And that was how the promo ended. And I never forgot that promo because it was so obnoxious.
You know, never say never when it comes to this business, right?
Yeah, but it helps if you had FaceTime on
That's true.
television. You
That's
know,
true.
you know, that if you have FaceTime, FaceTime is everything,
Hmm.
not being hidden and buried and, developmental and nobody ever saw who you were. It was crazy because it felt like a surreal dream.
Hmm.
Like still to this day, it almost feels like it didn't really happen. It was just like a dream that I woke up from, or a dream that became a nightmare, and I woke up from it. But I welcome the opportunity. If there is an opportunity, I would love to work with some of the guys that they have now.
Hmm.
Some of the guys that I came up with. I've always been a guy where you put me in the ring with someone who's seasoned, like a Seth Rollins or a Miz or God, who else? Sheamus.
Hmm.
Uh, they have a way of pulling me to their level.
Hmm.
Some of the best matches I ever had were with guys that were signed to the company because I literally didn't have to do anything. All I had to
Yeah.
do was listen. That's it. They're going to call everything. They're going to tell you what to do. Just listen. That's all you got to do. They tell you to slow down, slow down. They tell you to speed up, speed up. They tell you to sell more, sell more. They make it so easy. There, there have been matches that I've had where by the end of it, you're not even sweating.
Hmm.
It's unreal because it feels like everything out there moves so fast. But in actuality, it slows down.
Mhm.
And like, so like when they looked at me for my tryout, um, Johnny gave me an opportunity to get in front of the SmackDown roster and put on a match with one of their signed guys. When he called my name in front of everybody,
Mhm.
the walk up the steps felt like it took forever. When I got into the ring, it felt like it took forever. But then I, I don't know how to explain it, man. I felt nothing. As soon as he said, "Show us what you got,"
Mhm.
it was like I felt nothing because at that point I was so pissed off, feeling that I wasted my time, 10 years of my life trying to get an opportunity that's never going to happen. And it was in that moment that I realized it was like, it was that moment. It was like I realized that this is my time to not care what anybody thinks,
Mhm.
to not worry about someone else's feelings. Because right now I'm in my own feelings, and this is my fifth tryout after 10 years. And for me to not have an answer when all it takes is 5 minutes to get a simple yes or no to tell me if I should continue pursuing this or just move on with my career. I wanted my 5 minutes, and I didn't drive through 7 hours of snow to come here and say, hey, best of luck next time. I
Mhm.
want a definitive yes or no. It's either yes or no, and I know which way to take my life. And that's where I was at. I wasn't gonna just go, like, I was literally going to the back to pack up and leave. Um, they had me, my first match, they had me do a tryout match before that match with Tommaso,
Mhm.
and it didn't go well. Our timing was off. It just wasn't the right fit. And I felt like that was a poor representation of what I'm capable of. And then when I was walking to the back, this is where I said it kind of became a surreal moment because a year prior to being signed, I was up in Albany, wound up with a flat tire. The guy who fixed my tire was the uncle of John Cena's roommate from college.
Mhm.
He said, if you ever have a chance to meet John, tell him that we say hello. So I did that at SmackDown. I walked up to John and I said, you know, I, I was told if I ever had the opportunity to meet you to tell you these two people say hello. And then he knew who they were. He asked me how I knew them. I told him the story about the flat tire. He said, hey, have a great workout. Anything I can do for you? We'll, I'll do whatever I can. I said, I really appreciate that. And he came out um, after I had that match and the main roster guys were getting in the ring. I realized, all right, they're done looking at me. I wasn't even going to stay for the show. I was walking to the back to grab my gear and just head home because I didn't care anymore. I was like, I'm not. This is a waste of my time at this point. He comes out and he was just like, "Hey, how was the workout?" I was like, "You know what? I'm heading home." And he was like, "What?" I was like, "No disrespect, but I'm I'm heading home." And he asked me, what's going on? He's like, "Talk to me." And I was like, "This is my fifth tryout in 10 years. I'm 29 years old. I'm a doctor back in New York. I've been chasing this dream my entire career, like my entire life. And all I need is 5 minutes to hear a yes or no." He said, don't go anywhere. He goes and sits at ringside, looks at Johnny Ace. Johnny Ace clears the ring. Next thing you know, they put me in the ring with one of their guys, worked this match, and it led to me getting signed. So it was really cool because it was a moment in time where I spoke my mind, I was heard, and it was up to me at that point. We'll make it happen for you,
Mhm.
but you have to show us what we need to see for it to go any further. And apparently I showed them what they needed to see because I was offered a contract right after that. It was really cool. It was that moment in time that, I will always remember. Um, like I said, I just wish it went further.
Well, like John, if there's ever anything that I can do, please feel free to reach out and let me know.
Okay.
I,
Absolutely.
I appreciate you coming on here and telling your story and talking about your experiences and stuff. And it truly matters. And I can't thank you enough.
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's nice to talk about it every once in a while.
Hmm.
Um, I like I said, I if they called me, I would go in a heartbeat because it's like I still have that feeling inside me that not that I have something to prove.
Hmm.
It's more about having something to finish. And like it feels like there's unresolved thoughts and goals
Hmm.
that I'm just not going to get from working in an office.
Yeah.
There's that piece of me that knew and knows deep down inside that this ride isn't over yet. I mean, I popped up in Damian Priest's documentary. I was supposed to wrestle with Mickey Rourke for The Wrestler,
Hmm.
and he came and saw me work in Allentown at WXW, and he freaked out, and they had to recast my spot in The Wrestler. But funny enough, if you watch The Wrestler, towards the end when Mickey Rourke's talking to Ernest Miller
Hmm.
in the empty arena, when it pans out and the guy's doing push-ups in the corner in the ring,
Hmm.
look to the right side of the screen. The person sitting at ringside reading a book, it's me. I was studying for part two of my boards because my boards were happening in uh, Bridgeport, Connecticut, and the filming of the movie that weekend was in Edison, New Jersey. So I went and took my test. Then I drove to Edison to be there for the filming. Then I drove back to continue taking my boards. Then I drove back to continue seeing the filming.
That's pretty cool. Well, if they're, let's see how far this interview goes. Let's see if it gets in the front of the right eyes of the right people.
Yeah, I tell you, man, I just there's still more to do. You know, I it just doesn't feel like it's complete. Like
Hmm.
it. Yeah, this was 2010. It's now 2025.
Hmm.
It feels like it's not finished. Like it feels like there's still more to do.
Hmm.
And I'm good, man. I'm ready to go,
Let's
you
make it
know?
happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me get this out there and then we'll see what we can do.